Hello, everybody, and welcome into the Apples and Ginos Fantasy Hockey Podcast. My name is Blake Creamer. He is Nate Grutniblick, and in this podcast, we're going to take a look at 10 players aged 34 and up to see how they performed this past year and how fantasy relevant they may be next season. Let's get to biz. Oh, yeah. Welcome in, everybody, to the Apples and Ginos Fantasy Hockey Podcast, the flagship show. We're doing stuff over here, and it feels amazing. With me, today, I've got my one, my only, my rock, my reason for getting up in the morning, and the goatee that fills me with glee, Nate Grutniblick. Buddy, how are we feeling tonight?
Well, better after that, but would have been better if Edmonton could have pulled something together in this game. I'm just sick of Florida, man. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, we get it. You're really good. Like, let's let somebody else win something. I don't know. That's where I'm at with Florida these days.
Yeah, it's funny, man. I've really I've got on the bandwagon with Edmonton. No shame in that game. I just want to see someone win. But of course, now they're losing 3-2 in the series. God. I mean, you think you pick a team with the two best players in the world, you probably have a pretty good chance, but I don't know. Florida that's a different animal, man. One thing I love about Florida here in these playoffs is just how unflappable they are. And I think it starts at the top with Paul Maurice. The guy's interviews are so epic. When they bring up some bull crap, like the media trying to spin a story, he just says some random crap like, yeah, Barkov's terrible, or like Bobrovsky was gross on those last two shots that were both empty net goals. He's just, I think it's really keeping it light, and I think that's a big advantage for Florida.
Yeah, it's the whole team. Like they truly have built a culture there. You can argue about the cap advantages they have with the no state tax and all that, but it's pretty impressive the on ice product that they put together. I think they're just up and down the lineup, front and back. Like everybody's so versatile. They can adapt to any game state. They can send different guys out there. They can match you up against different lines, and they can take. A lot of teams they go on the road and they can't deal with the bad matchups that they're getting. Like their lower end guys just get exposed, and Florida is just so deep that just never happens. So it's really impressive to see again. Like I think Forsling didn't have his best playoffs this season, but he showed up in the first game and he sees McDavid again and he's like, oh yeah, and then he just jacked it up to 11, and now he's like an unbelievable shutdown defender again in the Stanley Cup Finals. Yeah, it's crazy to watch. Yeah, McDavid still doing McDavid things, and it's still not enough. Yeah, I mean, it's great spectacle at the very least for us.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, this is an all-timer for sure. It's been a great series, fun to watch, but yeah, also just as an aside, do you know who Gene Principe is, Nate?
Yes.
Have you seen, what is going on with that man's tan? Have you seen this? He's out there in Florida. I don't know. Google Gene Principe, folks, and check it out. This man is more bronze than Trump. It's insane. He looks like, yeah, he's wearing, he's out on the beach and he's got one of those cones on, with that drives the vitamin D right to his face. Have you seen this?
I don't know that I've seen a recent shot of him, to be honest with you, but yeah, I do know who Gene Principe is.
All right. Okay. Well, that's great, Nate. All right. That's really furthering the banter here. Damn it. All right. The guy's crispy. All right. Just let's agree on that. All right. We're digressing here. This podcast here, we're going to talk about it's kind of a fun episode I like to do. We're talking about distinguished gentlemen. We're talking about players that are age 34 and up, and what their possible relevance might be for fantasy. And we've got 10 players here that we're going to look at. Basically, we're going to dive into what they were able to do last season a little bit, and then what can we expect from them next season? Because I personally think that elderly statesmen, 34 and up, oh my God, we're like, yeah, these are some oldies, right? I'm a 44-year-old man. I could have babysat all these guys. But yeah, I think that it's a narrative that maybe people in fantasy might sort of skip past. Guys like the players that we'll be talking about here today, I think they were all to be had at value last season, and that could be what happens next year as well. So without further ado, Nate, we're going to talk about some elderly men here. All right, people of your age group, right? This is right in the wheelhouse for you.
This is, this year I will turn 34, so I am joining the ranks as of this year.
Right. You're over the hill, buddy. I'm sorry to say. All right. I think you have one gray beard hair. You better sort that out.
Get the tweezers out, eh?
Yeah, get the tweezers. I just raw dog it with the just pinch it. Just beep. Let's get that out there. You know what I'm saying? All right. Let's dig in here. We're going to talk about distinguished gentlemen. Can these 10 distinguished gentlemen provide us some value next season for fantasy? Studs or duds? Let's dig in. All right. First player we're going to talk about is Chicken Necks. Chris Kreider, that vampire bait, that insane long-necked beauty, Chris Kreider. I'm just going off on Chris Kreider. I don't know what the hell's happening, but yeah, obviously this past season, Chris Kreider was massively overvalued. I mean, I don't have the ADP from me here, but I think he was in the top 50, wasn't he, Nate? Like, I don't know, you can check that out, but we knew that this was going to be a problem this year, I think, and certainly that came home to roost. The Rangers, their offense wasn't terrible this year. The power play was. I mean, they were the 28th worst power play in the league. I was digging in there, like I couldn't believe that. And their defense was really the problem there. And I think their aggressive rush style there under Peter Laviolette was kind of the main problem there. These guys were getting caught in the offensive zone, and they were getting chances driven down their throat. And Chesty had sort of an off year, so that's just kind of what happened. But in terms of what Kreider was able to do, the Cy Young season, he does it again. 68 games, 22 goals, 8 assists. Buddy, pass the puck. You play like this, Nate? Like, buddy, can I get the puck? What are you doing? You're just driving it down their throats, and I don't know. I ask the question, then I just go off on a tangent. I don't. Yeah, 22 goals for Chris Kreider, not very good, right? And the main factor here was on the power play. He went from 29 power play points last year to just 7 last year, and that's crazy to me. So obviously, we know that this guy battled some injuries this year, and I think that possibly could have affected him. I don't know. And now he's been traded to Anaheim. That's something that we get to talk about with this player here. And Nate, I want to get your thoughts on this player. First off, in Anaheim, do you think that he bounces back from this kind of garbage season here? Or do you think that he's been trending down, especially with some of his metrics here? Like his IPP was a career worst, 42% at even strength this year. And he was playing on a pretty good line there in New York. So I don't know. What do you think about Chris Kreider, Chicken next season, stud or dud?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be tough for him to reclaim his former glory, that's for sure. It's obviously a downgrade to go to Anaheim. The one place it might not be a downgrade is in the time on ice this year, only 16:45 average time on ice. That's a big drop, around 18 and a half minutes average time on ice the previous 3 seasons there in New York. The advanced stats did dip, but they're still decent. Most of the dip came at even strength, like you were mentioning. The thing is, like, the power play is so key for Kreider, right? 69 power play goals, 102 power play assists, or power play points, rather, in the last 5 seasons. That goal total is pretty nice. And then over the last 5 seasons in total, he has 169 goals total, 266 points total. So 41% of his goals, 38% of his points come on the power play. Just one of the more power play dependent players in the entire league over the last 5 seasons. And so the question is, and you saw it this year, right? New York goes from the 3rd best power play in the league in 23-24 to the 28th best in 24-25. And guess what? Anaheim last year, 32nd in the league in power play efficiency. So
Yay!
yeah, it's not like he's going to some terrific situation where his power play setup is going to be instantly better. That being said, it was a Greg Cronin power play last year, or whoever was running that power play for Anaheim, whole new coaching staff coming in with Quenneville there. So yeah, who knows what that looks like, but obviously it's going to have to be built from the ground up if it's going to get much better than it was last year. So that's the big question. pretty much like I looked at his microstats too, like pretty much what you expect, right? Like he's good at playing in front of the net. He's also a pretty good defensive player still, which I thought was kind of interesting. So it's not like he's without use, even if he's not, you know, scoring goals in front of the net. So that part is still nice for him. My big question is where does he fit in the lineup? Like I think you only acquire Chris Kreider to go on your top power play. Like there's pretty much no reason to acquire a guy like this if he's not going straight to your top power play. Where does he play at even strength? Where does he fit with these guys? Like towards the end of the season, you had McTavish playing with Colangelo and Zegras. Pretty much the whole year, Troy Terry was playing with Vetrano and Strome. Kudos to Troy Terry for sticking that out. And then you had Cutter Gauthier, who's the other guy that obviously we're most interested in, playing with Leo Carlson and Alex Killorn for most of the year. So where does he fit in with those lines? I'd like to see him with Terry. Terry can maybe be the puck carrier and do some of that stuff, and Kreider can just bull rush the net every single time they're on the ice together. That could be of interest. They still need to figure out who the center on that line is because I don't think Ryan Strome is the correct answer long term. Maybe Leo Carlson fits that role this year, or maybe McTavish works better with Terry this year than he has in years past. Whatever the case, I think they need to try to figure something like that out and let Chris Kreider do what Chris Kreider does best. I think they targeted this guy though, right? Like they actually gave up something to get him.
Yep.
They're gonna eat some salary here. They have the room to do it, so it's not like, this was their last acquisition of the offseason or something. But clearly they wanted this guy and they have the role in mind for him. So that part at least is optimistic. The question is really, is there much of a ceiling here in Anaheim? How much of a step will they take under Quenneville? And that's still a wide range variance for me.
Yeah, no, it's great analysis. I think it's interesting, right? Anaheim, it's hard to judge them like now this season as opposed to last season because of the coaching change. We've got like a legitimate coach in here, like love him or hate him. This guy's a great hockey coach. There's no question about that in Joel Quenneville. And then, yeah, I think that Kreider really thrives in a role where he's the leader. Right. And, he's going to a young team. He's been there before. He's good at that. He's a well-liked player. And I really do think that injuries kind of hampered him this season. So I'm not sure he didn't go full Kreider. All right. He never went full Kreider last year. But yeah, what does it look like? Like he's going from an elite power play that had a really bad year to now just a bad power play. Right. But one thing I saw last year with the power play, I did want to mention this, is that, especially when they got JT Miller in there, he was kind of taken out of the play a little bit. There was a lot of passing around the top, right, with the kind of the more offensive players, and he became, a guy who I always use as an example, but Zach Hyman, right? He's just positioning himself, getting ready for stuff, but he wasn't really involved in the play. His IPP went down big time. So I don't know. I think with Anaheim, a lot of their offense came from the D last season. So maybe Kreider is rejuvenated there, but I don't know. I think we're probably looking at like a 50-point season, maybe 30 goals. I can see him getting 30 goals next year, like if he's fully healthy and rejuvenated, but I don't know. Decent periffs too. Shout out the chicken necks, that vampire bait. If you're a vampire, this guy is a target. We know this, right, Nate? The jugular on this guy, it's like a tube of toilet paper. I don't know what's going on. Yeah,
it's got to be one of the most prominent jugulars in the league. That's for sure.
Maybe there was a blood flow problem. I don't know.
Yeah, there's a good point to be made there, just on like where Kreider's going to be drafted next year. So he has the terrible season, then he gets traded to Anaheim. He's probably going to be left for dead, right? And yeah, he's a guy who can provide some peripherals too. And yeah, if he sneaks towards 30 goals, we know Anaheim's going to have another great off night schedule once again next year. It's definitely a guy that you want to keep in the back of your mind on draft day.
There you go. You heard it here first. All right, let's move on to a player we don't need to spend a bunch of time on because I've taken the bath on this already. It's that Silver Fox, Alex Ovechkin. All right, just tooted right in my face this season. Obviously a big listener to the pod. He didn't like what I had to say. Just went nuclear. Yeah. But yeah, obviously everything came up roses for Ovi in 24-25. And, it was great stuff. It was magical. It really was. The guy, broke his leg, came back, broke the record. Amazing stuff. But yeah, I don't think anyone could sit here and be like, I saw this happening. No question. It's like every metric that we care about, and even just basic stuff like his skating. You know what I mean? It's terrible. It's absolutely atrocious. This guy is just a freaking pylon out there, right? He doesn't forecheck. He can't skate, but what he can do, shoot the puck. Oh my God. Like, what was he? He was second overall in shots on goal per 60 on the season, first overall in chucking pucks per 60. That's pretty good, isn't it, Nate?
Pretty solid stuff, actually. Yeah, he actually increased his shots per 60 and his individual scoring chances for per 60. Not a return to like his peak levels, obviously.
Yep.
He is definitely in his late 30s. That shows up in the numbers for sure. But I mean, yeah, 44 goals, 73 points in 65 games played. That's a 55 goal, 92 point pace. Pretty solid stuff. But yeah, there are some pretty obvious warning signs with Ovechkin. First off, the ice time, 1743 average time on ice, big drop from 1913 the year before. So that's there. And then, yeah, 72% IPP, 18.6% shooting percentage, 15.4% on ice shooting percentage. The shooting percentage and on ice shooting percentage are the highest of his career. The
Yeah.
IPP is the highest in a decade. He really doesn't do much but just bomb shots. He's a liability in terms of entries. Passing is not a positive. Defensive liability, like anything you look at, microstats, advanced stats, it's not painting a pretty picture of this guy as anything more than a one-dimensional player. That one dimension is still pretty epic. Like, you have to admit that. But I think it's also a situation where you cannot bank on him being this efficient once again. I do want to say, like, the fit with Dylan Strome is undeniable. Like, those two guys go together perfectly. Strome is completely allergic to shooting the puck, and Ovechkin is completely allergic to passing it. So they fit perfectly together. You have the chemistry with John Carlson on the power play that's been there for over a decade at this point. That's still locked in. So, yeah, Ovechkin is probably in the best place possible for him in the entire league for him to continue doing this. My question is, like, if there's any more physical drop off, then this could get ugly pretty fast. I'm not saying that he's not going to even score 30 goals next year. I don't know where my projection is going to come out, but I think he'll still be pretty good. But, like, this is kind of like the Reinhardt season we had last year. That's kind of what this Ovechkin season feels like to me. And I feel like we're going to get a pretty significant pullback just in terms of natural regression. And then you compound that with the potential additional age regression as he ages into his 40s here. Yeah, I just think that it's going to be a player that is going to go way too high for me in drafts next year.
Yeah. Well, that's the question, isn't it? Like, where are we going to be drafting this guy? I remember, I think in our way too early mock draft, you drafted him in the third round, like kind of, it might've been mid third to end of the third round. Are you still kind of feeling that, or do you think that's going to be too high? Like, and before you get into that, I just wanted to mention too, I think there's like a mental hurdle that's sort of been cleared now that he's got this record. And I feel like, it's like one of those things, like, you're driving towards a goal, and now what's the goal, right? Like, he was out there, like, in the last minutes of games, like every empty net he's firing at, right? Is he even going to be that kind of player moving forward, or are they going to treat him the way he probably should be treated, at his age and his skill level?
Yeah, that's a valid question at this point. Yeah, I took him at the 310 in that one. That's probably the latest he's going to go in any of your drafts. I would think. Like, he just had a 55 goal pace last year. I imagine somebody's going to be like, I have to take Ovechkin here in your drafts. So, yeah, I mean, somewhere in that range is when you're definitely going to have to start to think about it. As we get into it, I'm sure my projections will start to pull some other guys up, and I'll probably kind of just naturally push them down into the fourth round for myself. That'd be my guess anyway, but we'll see. But yeah, it might just be a case where you're like, I don't think the upside is worth the risk here. You can guess that he'll do the exact same thing again. I just think more often than not, you're not going to see that season.
Yep, I think we're in agreement there. I was 1 year too early on my Ovechkin downturn here, so I think it's going to fall off. I think it's going to fall off pretty steep. Prove me wrong, Ovechkin. Prove me wrong. All right, let's talk about the next absolute beauty, Anze Kopitar of the LA Kings. Yeah, saw an awesome video of this guy accepting the Lady Byng Trophy there with his family. Like, this guy's a beauty. He had 2 penalty minutes on the season. What? I mean, he's out there for 20 minutes a game. So I don't know what he's doing. He's skating around. He's dipsy doodling. I don't know. But yeah, this is a guy that, again, I think was a little bit left for dead last season in terms of ADP. I think he was well over the 120 mark, maybe even way over like 160. I can't remember, but Kopitar was around. He was available, and he just put up a pretty darn good season. Like 67 points in 81 games, really nice. Like 19 minutes average time on ice. That has been going down over the past few seasons, but still, those are first line minutes. He's still power play 1, but I mean, lots of red flags that we're looking at here. And to me, like one of the things that's really shocking about Anze Kopitar are the individual chance and shot generation numbers. Like on the year, Kopitar was 445th in shots and goal per 60. What? Like what? And he was 423rd in individual scoring chances 4 per 60. That's not good, folks. Okay, that's shocking. That's like he just doesn't want to shoot. You know what I mean? Like this guy was never a burner, but his numbers they should be higher than that. It doesn't quite make sense. So I think he's really kind of morphed into just a pure facilitator, like a guy that he's only looking to pass. He's not really bringing anything else to the table. But, I mean, he does that really well, right? This guy, according to Microstats, he was in the 95th percentile in the league in primary shot assists, which is excellent, and high danger passes, right? And when you got a guy like Adrian Kempe on your line for most of the season, like you're going to end up with some assists there, right? So that said, I mean, he's in a contract year coming up here, Nate. What do you think? Like, is this time, like we still have Quentin Byfield here who maybe, do they want him back at center again this season? Like, does he take that 1C? The Kings are sort of in the market to make a big splash in free agency or for trade as well. Like, what if they bring in Marner? You know what I mean? Like, does Kopitar basically get the 1C power play 1 treatment moving forward? Or do you think he's kind of passing the torch to guys like Quentin Byfield?
Yeah, I mean, he definitely is. 1857 average time on ice this year, 4th straight season of decline in his average time on ice. Yep. Obviously, that's still a big role for the team. 21 goals, 67 points in 82 games played. As you mentioned, the passing microstats look pretty good here. So I think he still provides a good role on the power play just in terms of distribution. Still obviously good at that and still defensively terrific. So he's still a valuable player in those regards. But the individual advanced stats are just really bad now at this point. And somehow he's sustained higher efficiency the last 3 years as the volume has decreased. I feel like that has to come home to roost at some point, and it could be as soon as this season. I do want to see what LA does this offseason if they start to plan for someone to kind of take over Kopitar's role on the power play. I don't think that guy is on the roster right now, so it would have to be an addition of some kind. If they don't add anyone of significance, then I'd expect Kopitar to maintain that role. I think he's not the 1C anymore, though. I think we did see the torch pass to Byfield last year, and that will continue to kind of trend in opposite directions. And then, we'll see what they do this offseason, but definitely we see everything under the hood kind of just trending down for this player. And realistically, it's not a player, more assist heavy, isn't giving you a lot of peripherals, as you mentioned, Lady Byng trophy winner.
Yeah.
And not doing a whole lot of that stuff. So it's just a guy that's probably not going to help you even if he has his best case scenario this year. Is that really going to be anything of consequence for you? Probably not. Probably there are going to be guys that you pick up off the waiver wire who will give you just as much. So it's just not a player that I'm ever going to be excited about.
Yeah, I think there's a good chance that he falls even more. And that this last season here was probably best case scenario for him at this age and kind of what the team looks like. So shout out to Anze Kopitar. This guy's a legend. I mean, he's a winner at every level. And I like the player. I like the guy. But I think I'll be steering clear. If Kopitar is available with your last pick in fantasy, you taking him?
Probably not, honestly. There's probably just somebody swinging on or trying to get that first week schedule under wraps.
Just hurtful. All right. Kopitar is a big listener to the show as well, Nate. And you just whizzed in his cornflakes. All right. He's coming out with a bee in his bonnet. All right. Let's move on. We got to talk about the Zucchini Man, Matt Zuccarello. Oh, yeah. Head on over to YouTube, folks, and check out this amazing AI picture of Matt Zuccarello. It doesn't even look like him, but he's holding a zucchini, and it's giving me a lot of joy in my life, and that's what I need. anyways, let's dig in on the Zucchini man. Yeah, it was like this guy's pretty. I didn't realize how old Zuccarello was, but he's almost 38, right? And something about Zuccarello, he profiles similar to Kopitar, right? In the way that he's not generating stuff individually for himself. He's very much a facilitator and reliant on his teammates. And for fantasy, that's not exactly the place I want to be. You know what I mean? Unless you're just elite at that, right? And you're an amazing passer, that's fine. But I don't know, like we were talking about with Ovechkin, it's kind of a one-dimensional guy. And I think that's where Matt Zuccarello is at this point in his career. But, let's see what he was able to do last season. I mean, 54 points in 69 games. That's still pretty good. That's still absolutely reasonable. I had Matt Zuccarello on 3 teams last year that I got with like one of my last 2 picks. And yeah, it was good. And that was a season without Kaprizov. Kaprizov was on the shelf for most of the season with injury, and Zuccarello was still able to get 54 points. So I don't know. Where are you at with this player, Nate? Because I think that power play points is still something that Matt Zuccarello can bring to the table. Obviously, healthy Kaprizov this next season will be a big factor for Matt Zuccarello because he does play with him at times. But I really do think that he needs power play 1, Matt Zuccarello. Like if he doesn't have power play 1, I mean, what are we doing here? He just becomes like Gustav Nyquist or Marcus Johansson, right? I don't think that there's that much upside there, but I still do think that he's going to get power play 1. And I think this is a player that we probably should look at next year, and you could probably get an extreme value. So I don't know. What do you think about this Keeney man?
Yeah, definitely a player similar to Kopitar, has left his best days behind him at this point, but is still smart enough to kind of get it done at every step along the way. So even if he's limited, if he's in the power play 1 role, if he's on the Kaprizov line, those are definitely places that he can still provide fantasy relevance. Last year, he skates 1913 average time on ice, and that's really how he kind of arrived at his fantasy relevance, is just by sheer volume. And so it's hard to bet on continued volume for a player as they age this much, right? Especially with Minnesota this year finally ditching the Ryan Suter and Zach Parise contracts, those buyouts, getting some relief on those. They're going to spend some money this offseason for sure. Does any of that involve a player who could replace Zuccarello either at even strength and or on power play 1? That's the big question for me, and that's something we still have to see yet, but it wouldn't be surprising even if they may just decide that this offseason the right player is out there for them to start planning for life beyond Matt Zuccarello, and they may just take that splash this year 1 year in advance rather than wait for Zuccarello to really nosedive due to age. So all of that is concerning for sure in terms of Zuccarello's outlook for next year. That being said, if we get into training camp and we're seeing him line up alongside Kaprizov, we're seeing him on that power play 1 in the early training camp rotations, then for sure you're going to have to be back in, because I don't see anything under the hood to suggest that he can't, if given all those big minutes and those roles again, for him to continue to press on at this 20-ish goal pace, 60-point pace. That's definitely in the cards.
Yeah, and that's very valuable for the late round pick to get a guy like this that I do think has a little bit of ceiling. Like he could pop off with efficiency and put a 70-point season together. I don't think that's out of the question. I don't think that's likely, but we're going to get a full season of cap here. And I really like that power play there in Minnesota. I think it's, the season they had here, it obviously doesn't show up very well. I think they were like 21st or something like that in the league in conversion, but that was without cap, right? And a really inefficient Boldy again. So now we got another year of Boldy, who's, probably figuring out his game, and then whatever they do, free agency or trades. I think that Zuccarello has a pathway to some efficiency and some good points here. So I'm keeping my eye on this stud. What a beauty. I mean, what I would love if, does Matt Zuccarello like zucchinis? I mean, I wonder about that. I think about that sometimes at night. Is he a big zucchini fan? I don't know. Are you with me on this, Nate?
Yeah, I think it's one of the most pressing questions of the offseason for sure.
Who the hell put zucchini in cake? I think I've asked that question before, but seriously, you got a delicious cake, and then you're like, what this cake needs? Zucchini. What the frick? No. All right. I mean, it's fine, but put some more chocolate in it or something. Anyways, let's move on. We're getting long in the tooth already. We got to get the biz. Let's talk about Claude Giroux. another distinguished gentleman out of Ottawa there. And I want to dig in on this player. It's, to me, Giroux is still a guy that's going to be relevant for fantasy. He's 37 years old, but part of the problem with Giroux is going to be how is he deployed moving forward, right? Like, is he still going to get top six? I believe that he will, but one thing that I noticed in digging in for this episode is that Ottawa's even strength production was terrible. Like, they were really, really bad. You dig in on the team microstats as well. Like, they weren't generating a damn thing. It was the power play, really, that sort of saved them there. And that wasn't even that good. That was 13th overall. But yeah, I'm going off here. Let's look at what Giroux was able to do. 50 points in 81 games. That's decent, right? But I mean, I think that definitely shows a player that's, moving into more of a role player as opposed to, kind of the offensive star he's been in the past. 18 power play points. I like that. He had a 45% power play share. I think that's fine. And he had over 18 minutes average time on ice. So I think if those things hold, I do believe that, his efficiency was down a little bit. Like, he had a 10.8 shooting percentage where he's been a little bit more efficient throughout his career at times. And I think that Ottawa is too good of a team to be as bad as they were at even strength. So I still think there's like a 55 to 60 point player there with Giroux, but a lot would have to go right. What do you think about Claude Giroux? And is this a player that you think maybe at the end of your drafts, you're maybe looking to acquire?
Probably not, to be honest with you. Giroux is a guy that I think is kind of morphing into a true 3C at this stage in his career. Lead on draws, like literally the best in the league on draws last year. Good defensively,
Nice.
good playmaker, but really doesn't have the capability to like drive a line offensively, but can definitely be a really strong 3C on a good playoff team. And so, I mean, there's still a question, like, does he even return to Ottawa? There's no contract there yet. His contract is up. He's UFA. We're, 15 days away from free agency here. So there's still time, but they've had time to get this done, and they haven't done it so far. So Nick Kyprios was saying it's not a given that Giroux returns to Ottawa. Take that for what you will. I don't know, but Giroux could give you a 60-point season, but that feels like ceiling at this point for Giroux. Like, I don't think his time on ice is going to go back up to like 19 plus next year unless there's, like catastrophic injuries through the lineup. So you're talking about a guy who's maxing out at 18 minutes time on ice, who's probably maxing out at like a 50% power play share, most likely. And so, what are you really getting with Claude Giroux? I just don't see the upside here I'm just at the end of my drafts, I'm all about upside because I know that these are the guys I'm going to be cycling through in the first few weeks of the season. If they're not hitting, I'm moving on to the next thing, trying to find those big hits that'll stick with my lineup for the year. And I just have no confidence that Claude Giroux is going to be a guy. He might give you a week or two here or there. Obviously, a lot of players have that ability in this, 50-point range of player. They'll give you a couple weeks here or there.
Mm-hmm.
But over the course of the season, I want somebody who's got a little bit more upside.
That's an interesting conversation to me, actually, is like what you do with your last few picks, because I might go the other way with that. I like the solid floor on some of these older players, and that's why I like to dig in on them. Like, Evgeny Malkin was a player last year that I was like, he's still there. I'm taking him. Like, why would I not take a guy that has potential for 70 points, right? He didn't get it, but I ended up holding him on my team for a long time. And, yeah, that's an interesting conversation because I subscribe to, the upside as well. But when a guy like this, Giroux or Zuccarello or Kopitar, any of the guys we've talked about so far, falls in your lap with like one of your last two picks, to me, it's a bit of a smash. I'm taking that like pretty much guaranteed production, like unless it's things that I saw like Alexander Ovechkin, where it's like things could potentially fall off a cliff. But guys like Giroux, I mean, things are pretty solid. He's getting good ice time. Obviously, we need to see where he signs, but I don't know. That's an interesting piece. I'd love to hear the listeners. What do you think about that? What are you doing with your last few picks there? Are you going with some of these oldies, or are you going upside? That's an interesting piece there. And who's right and who's wrong? Like, definitely get us there, all right? Because I need that for my ego. Okay. All right, let's move on. Nate. He's not taking Claude Giroux, folks. So if you're in a league with Nate, Claude Giroux is yours. Okay. Let's move over to the Nashville Predators and one of the stinkiest seasons of all time, Steven Stamkos. Steven called the fuzz. He did. Terrible season. There's a couple good things with the Steven Stamkos season. I'll get into it here. Obviously horrible. In 2023, 2024, he had a pretty nice season, 81 points, 79 games, including 40 goals. That's nice. Okay, that feels like what I sort of expected for him to do with Nashville there. And that's not what happened. He got 52 points in 82 games, played all 82, so that's nice. A minus 36. I mean, that's not a stat that I really care about, but when it gets to that level, you're like, something's wrong here, right? Like this, it just was a terrible season for Nashville in general, right? Obviously, their offensive production was non-existent. They weren't able to do it anywhere, really. Stamkos was able to save his season with, decent power play numbers, 14 power play goals, 21 power play points. But yeah, it was just a garbage season. He had career lows in a lot of metrics, all the metrics that we care about, the individual shot and chance generation, terrible on ice shooting percentage, IPP, all that stuff was not good, right? But the good news is to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, Nate, but it can't get any worse, can it?
Yeah, I don't think it can. I kind of made this case. I put Stamkos on my dynasty buys list, especially for if you're a contending team in dynasty. I think this is a spot where a team that is kind of trending the opposite direction will be looking at Stamkos like, I got to get rid of him for whatever I can get for him because he could go to nothing. I think he's still got a season or two left in him at a pretty decent clip here. Like, I mean, all said and done, he still almost hit 30 goals this year. And that was in like the absolute worst case scenario for this Nashville team. I do think that they need to address 2C and let Stamkos play on the wing, where I think he's a lot more effective. I still think they got to figure some things out about that power play and how it works when everybody's healthy and everybody's together. I thought they would figure it out last year. I mean, they were, I think, 18th in power play conversion percentage last year. It's just kind of mid. It's not really outstanding in any direction. But the interesting part was Stamkos doing a lot more passing, a lot more shot assists rather than shooting himself, which is kind of not what you want when you're drafting Steven Stamkos. But maybe they kind of figure out those roles a bit more in year two. Yeah, you've got on here Nashville's still well coached, at least for fantasy. You can argue about the results that you got from Andrew Burnett last year, but for fantasy purposes, they're going to get a lot of chances. They're going to generate stuff in the offensive zone, and that's what you want to see for fantasy purposes. So I do believe that Stamkos has a bounce back year in him.
Absolutely, buddy. We feel good about this. All right, let's move on. We don't need to talk about Steven anymore. All right, it's terrible, Steven. You really let us down. What a beautiful head of hair on Steven Stamkos as well. Let's agree on that. All right, we got to move on over to the Dallas Stars. Matt Duchene. What's that Duchene again? Duchene's doing stuff. He's going crazy. And he did, of course. I don't even remember my projection for Matt Duchene, but it wasn't what he did. I mean, he was point per game, Matt Duchene, in 17 minutes average time on ice. What a legend. Like, damn. Yeah, I don't know. I'm done doubting Matt Duchene. What I've learned through, looking at microstats and things like that is that Duchene is elite at that. And I want to quickly dive in on that. In terms of, first off, zone entries, this guy's elite, right? We know that. Like, zone entries leading to scoring chances, he does that. But this guy generates a ton, right? In terms of just chance contributions and shot contributions, which are like really good indicators, like that's like shot assists, chance assists, shots, individual shots, and individual chances himself. He's in the 98th percentile in chance and 97th percentile in shot contributions. This guy, he's an amazing offensive player, and that's never going to be questioned by me again. This guy's a beauty. It's interesting, though. Like, I wonder what happens if Matt Duchene moves on this offseason to a team where he's relied on a little bit more, right? Like as a number one guy and a number one power play guy, as opposed to sort of what he was with Dallas, which was that second line guy, second power play guy for a lot of the year until he was moved up to top power play. But I feel like he was able to kind of supplement in an offensive way with the Dallas Stars. And really put up an amazing season. Like, I mean, 82 points. That's incredible. Like, yeah, I did not expect that at all. 27 power play points as well for Matt Duchene with the 49% power play share. That's elite. That's freaking elite. So I don't know. I'm a fan of this guy. Big season for him. Massive efficiency. 20% shooting percentage, highest of his career, right? So that's likely to come down. But I don't know. What do you think? Like, first off, I'll give you a couple scenarios. He signs back with Dallas and he goes to another team and maybe becomes, more of a focal point of the offense. Like, how are you kind of projecting this man?
Yeah, like you said, everything under the hood looks fairly consistent with the last couple of years. He's obviously been a fit for DeBoer's system. The question is he a fit for whatever new system is brought in there? You've mentioned before that Dallas kind of changed systems, and Duchene has performed well in kind of both scenarios there, so that part looks pretty solid. But yeah, what happens with Dallas? Dallas is really in tight with the salary cap. You've heard the talk about moving Robertson. Sounds like that's been kind of pulled off the table for the time being,
What?
which is probably smart on their on their part.
Thought he was coming to Vancouver.
Yeah, I don't think that one was
Yeah,
happening, but
okay.
it's fun to dream, that's for sure.
It is.
Um, yeah, they've got to move cap space. They've got to move like Dumba and Labushkin, each making over 3 million, is really hamstringing them. Mason Marchment has been talked about as a potential candidate to move with his 4.5 mil. They'd love to move Sagan at 9.85, but obviously that contract they're kind of saddled with. Um, yeah, it really depends. I've heard they really like Granlund too, and they want to bring Granlund back. So who do they prioritize? Jamie Benn is a UFA. They have no money to do anything right now as it
Right.
stands. So um, I really can't say what's going to happen here. Duchene has said that he would love to stay in Dallas, but and maybe a scenario where he can't. If he does stay, then he may get actually a bigger role just by virtue of the fact that they have to move on from some of
Mhm.
these players and new coach. DeBoer really liked to spread out the minutes a lot throughout the lineup. New coach may decide that he has some horses that he really wants to ride this thing out with. Maybe that's just Rantanen, maybe that's just Johnston, maybe that's just Robertson, and Duchene is still like a second line role, and so he is still back around the 17-minute mark. Or maybe Matt Duchene is part of the circle of trust there, and he's up to 19 minutes a night in power play one, like a true power play one role, and it's actually a net positive. So there are still a lot of scenarios, and we'll have to see who the new coach is and try to make our projections that way. But yeah, to me right now it's very open ended with Duchene. I do think he ran a little hot last year, so even if DeBoer was still there, I would probably project him to take a little bit of a step back from this 82 point per game pace that he had last year. But yeah, there are still multiple scenarios. If he goes to a new team this offseason, you have to envision that if somebody's signing him, they're signing him to big money and they're signing him to skate more than 17 minutes a night. So that's definitely on the table as well.
Yeah, well, see, it's worth mentioning as well. Like, this guy has been a disappearing act in the playoffs the last two seasons with Dallas. And there's something about that. Like you said, I think he had a really lucky season here to get 82 points. He obviously had a lot of chemistry with that line. It was Mason Marchment, it was Tyler Seguin, but he also got bumped up to power play one halfway through the year and really crushed there as well. But I mean, he had 6 points in 18 games in this last Dallas run here in the playoffs, and they were all on the power play. He didn't have 1 point at even strength. That's crazy. And I think that's swinging way too hard the other way, right? That's massively unlucky because he was still, like, according to, microstats, again, he was generating a ton of chances for himself and for his teammates. He was massively unlucky. So it's somewhere in between, obviously, but it's worth noting that he's had a couple bad playoffs in a row. So yeah, I don't know. I have to throw a little shade Duchene's way, all right, because he's made me look bad in so many cases. All right, let's move on. We got to talk about the rat, Nate. We got to talk about this guy, Brad Marchand. He's pretty good. All right, he's pretty good at hockey. The guy's popping the hell off here in the playoffs. Like, another 2 goals here tonight, which is Saturday night against Edmonton. He's just killing him. This guy's got 22 points in 23 games. What? Or 20, it's unbelievable. Like, is he like, just before we get into analysis, like, are we talking about Marchand in the Conn Smythe conversation?
Oh, he's absolutely in the conversation. I mean, there's a lot of people in the conversation. It's, I mean, it's kind of hilarious if you just look at the point leaders. You have Draisaitl and McDavid with 33 points apiece, and then you go down to 23, and that's Bouchard.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's obviously, I mean, Sam Bennett's having an incredible playoffs here, 15 goals in 22 games, but yeah, Marchand's right there, 20 points in 22 games, and yeah, even seems like elevating his game at the most important time here has, scored huge goals for them this postseason. I think he's fit in Florida. I think Brad Marchand is just the guy who is a fit because he's good and he understands. He can play on this third line. And then once he started to get comfortable, that's when the offense started to come. I
Hmm.
think it's kind of underrated, but he was pacing for the highest individual scoring chances for per 60 of his career in Boston this year before he got traded. So the advanced stats are still strong with Marchand, still shows up strong in the micro stats. Like nothing about any of the numbers that we like to look at is suggesting to me that Brad Marchand is anything but the Brad Marchand of old. You're seeing evidence of that in the playoffs here. So I think it's really just a question of where does he go this offseason. Um, yeah, I don't think he can stay in Florida. I think they're gonna lock up Bennett. I think they're gonna lock up
Yeah.
Ekblad. That seems to be the way those things are trending, according to most analysts. Anyway, there's always chance that something may change there, but yeah, if Bennett prices himself into $10 million a year with somewhere going somewhere else, then maybe he does take a look at that. But either way, I think the most money is on Marchand moving on again this offseason. And where does he go? Is he assured power play one wherever he goes? That is a pretty big question as well because you're obviously going to need power play one to hit your full ceiling potential for fantasy purposes. But in terms of the player, you're seeing it in these playoffs. You see it in the underlying stats. There's nothing to suggest that Brad Marchand has actually fallen off.
Yeah. This guy to me is a prime example of the player I'm looking to target, right? And I targeted him this year. I got Brad Marchand in a couple spots pretty late. Like it was like 9th round Brad Marchand or 10th round Brad Marchand. And that felt like that just felt like free money. That felt like major value there. Obviously, like, what did he do in the regular season here? It was, 51 points in 71 games. But like you said, the underlying metrics, really good, like some of the best of his career, right? It's just Boston, they're a one-line team, right? And they're kind of going through some growing pains themselves, but Marchand's wasn't the problem, right? And I love to see this here in Florida. I honestly do, because it's to me with Marchand next season, I think that there is a good chance he signs with Florida. I read somewhere about Sam Bennett maybe taking an 8x8 contract, which is reasonable for what he does. A bit of high, but I think Ekblad might get moved. So I don't know. I think the best situation for fantasy is a situation where Brad Marchand goes to a team where he can play power play one. Right now, he's playing power play 2 and third line on Florida, and he has 20 points in 22 games. So what the hell do we know, Nate? This is crazy. I mean, he's just a gamer, right? He's crushing right now, but I do think that this is a player that probably in his age should be moved down the lineup. Like I think there's a reason why he's succeeding so well in Florida is because he's not the guy, right? He's not
Mhm.
required to be the guy. He's just out there doing what he does kind of under the radar. And, he's obviously built for the playoffs as well. But I'm wondering about that. Like, I think there is some value to be had on Marchand, even if he goes to a team where he's a supplementary guy, right? But, I mean, it just caps the ceiling. That ceiling goes down. But I think Marchand's floor is still pretty high. And I'm into this player next year. But I don't think he's going to be a value. After what he's been able to do in the playoffs here, like, his value is going to get nuked, isn't it?
Great spot for him here in Toronto alongside Tavares and Nylander.
Ooh, that would be quite a turn. You'd welcome Brad Marchand with open arms. Is that what you're saying, Nate?
Yeah, I think any Leafs fan is lying to themselves if they say they wouldn't welcome Brad Marchand as a Leaf after watching him for like 10 games. That's all it
Yeah.
would take before they would absolutely be in love with Brad Marchand on the Leafs.
Yeah, he's a beauty. It's unfortunate, but he's a beauty. All right. Every time I think of Brad Marchand, I think of him punching Daniel Sedin in the face like 5 times
Yeah.
in a row in the playoffs. And like, can someone go out there and just punch this guy right in the balls? Like, is that something that is? Can we do? I mean, sorry, folks, but seriously, I mean, if anyone deserves it, It's the rat. All right, let's move on. We got to talk about patty cakes. Patrick Kane, the Detroit Red Wings, although he's an unrestricted free agent this upcoming year, so we'll see what happens there. But yeah, this is a guy that had a pretty nice season here. I think, kind of reminded me of Brad Marchand a little bit, like where he's not the focal point on this team. Obviously, when he was with Chicago, it was the Patrick Kane show. He was the guy. But when he moved to Detroit, yeah, he's more of a he's a little higher than a supplementary piece, but like second line, power play one, the offensive acumen, all right, is pretty damn good. All right. He knows what he's doing out there. 59 points in 72 games. Pretty damn nice. That's a 67-point pace. 29 power play points. Detroit's power play really kind of kept them above water. Like it's a team that was massively efficient in 23-24, and they weren't able to sustain that, right? This past season, Detroit was 27th in the league in expected goals for, even strength. There's only 32 teams in the league, folks. Okay, Detroit wasn't doing a damn thing, and they were 30th in actual goals for, so that stinks. But fourth overall in power play percentage. So, and I think Kane was a big part of that, right? He had a massive season there. You know who else was a big part of it, Nate? I haven't been able to talk to you about this. Lucas Raymond. All right, 37 power play points. What do you say about that, Nate?
I say let's see it again.
Oh, damn. All right. What have you done for me lately, Lucas Raymond? You piece of stool. All right. I'm talking about Lucas Raymond, not you, Nate. I would never say that to you. All right. Yeah, we'll get back on Patrick Kane here. Yeah, what first off, like, have you heard anything about him potentially re-signing in Detroit? Like, I do think that's a decent fit there. Obviously, with a full season of Todd McClellan, I like that. I feel like that's going to be better than Derek Lalonde, what we saw the last season there. I think there's a bit more offense to be squeezed out here, and with the development of Lucas Raymond and DeBrincat being such a beast as well, I think DeBrincat's an underrated guy that I'm interested to see where his ADP lands. But yeah, I think I'd like to see Patrick Kane go back to Detroit. What do you think about this player? First off, if he does go back to Detroit, is he like a top six power play one guy, or is he going to kind of get the Marchand treatment?
Yeah, I think he's exactly that. Probably not like a true top line caliber player anymore, but definitely a guy who can be in that 65 to 70 point range. That's what he pays for this year in just under 18 minutes average time on ice. Really good power play player, obviously hockey sense off the charts, playmaking ability, still showing up strong, still a good rush player, good entry guy, does all that stuff for you. It's really just a question of how long can he sustain, the level that he's at. It did kind of seem like he dipped from, in terms of the advanced stats, the shot attempts, the individual scoring chances 4/60 kind of dipped the last 3 seasons, but it's kind of leveled off a little bit again. So it does seem like he's found a home here in Detroit. If he went somewhere else, then I would have some concerns about his ability to find his new niche there. I mean, we got a spot in Toronto for a guy like Patrick Kane too.
Oh, you want all the oldies over there? Yeah, distinguished gentleman. He's down talking everybody so that maybe they go to the Leafs and yeah, they get the biz.
Yeah, I don't know if I could ascribe the term distinguished gentleman to Patrick Kane. I think
He's not
there's
distinguished.
there's
He's
a little
not a
bit of
gentleman.
a long list of things that are not so distinguished or gentlemanly that go along with Patrick Kane. But in terms of the on ice product, yeah, still a strong playmaker, still a guy that, by everything that I look at, I still think he's got plenty of fantasy relevance left in him. Do I think that he's got, another point per game plus season left in the tank? Probably not at this point, but still very much a guy that can score some points in the right situation.
Absolutely, buddy. Patrick Kane got dropped in Cupful like halfway through the year last year, and I picked him up. I texted Nate right away. I'm like, buddy, we got Patrick Kane. Oh yeah, it was pretty amazing too. He had a nice back half there. Actually, last 21 games, he had 21 points.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Patty Kane. You beauty, you greaseball. I don't know. Patrick Kane needs to get that mullet back, like the lettuce out the back. I think that's true Patrick Kane right there. That's the source of his power. So I think we got to agree on that. All right, let's move on. We got to talk about the Penguins, and we got to talk about Erik Carlson, EK65. Yeah, I thought this guy was massively undervalued last year. His ADP didn't make a lot of sense to me. 92.9. it still seems a bit low to me. I don't think he really matched what I thought he was going to do. I thought that Erik Karlsson was going to have an increase in his power play points, and he actually had a decrease. So in 23-24, he had 17 power play points, and Pittsburgh's power play was terrible that year, one of the worst in the league. Well, one prediction we made, Nate, was true, is that Pittsburgh's power play got a lot better. They were 8th best in the league here in conversion. So shout out to us, Nate. It feels good there. But who wasn't involved? Erik Karlsson. All right. I don't know what they were doing. Just give it to Sid the Kid. I don't know. And let him do stuff that makes sense. But yeah, in terms of like fantasy hockey defenseman, I'm still way in on Erik Karlsson. I think that this guy, I hope that his ADP goes even further down, because this is a guy, he's one of the best offensive defensemen in the league. Like that's a fact. Like he just does everything really well when it comes to generating offense. What he doesn't do well is play defense. And it's in the name, Eric. Defenseman. All right. You gotta do that. Like in terms of the micro stats, like this guy's not doing a damn thing. Like one of the big micro stats that we look at to determine sort of defensive skill level is like the ability to stop zone entries that lead to chances. And Erik Karlsson is in the 17th percentile in that. That's bad. That's very bad. So I don't know, that's not exactly fantasy related, but I do think that, because he's so bad defensively, like it really kind of caps his ice time, right? The coaches aren't going to want to throw him out there. Certainly in the last minute of games, like he's not going to get any of those minutes. He might even be sort of trending towards a guy that plays sheltered offensive minutes, like think about like Dougie Hamilton a year ago or something like that, where he gets like 20 or 21 minutes average time on ice. Like that might be in the cards for Erik Karlsson. Like that is his wheelhouse. That's what he does. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on Erik Karlsson next year? He just had a 53-point season in 82 games, 15 power play points. Ice time was reasonable, 23 minutes, 14 seconds average time on ice. I think he's got more in the tank. I do think that he'll probably be a 55 to 60 point defenseman again next year. I haven't done my projections, but where are you at with him? And is this a guy that you're interested in grabbing maybe late in drafts? Or how late are you interested in grabbing him?
Yeah, I think there's a point in the draft where you'll take any player, but I think Carlson in Pittsburgh, assuming that he stays there, there's obviously been a lot of chatter about them trying to get out from that pretty albatross contract that they have there, $11.5 million for the next 2 years still. I don't see how they move on from him. I don't see how he doesn't play another, 22, 23 minute a night year again. Mm-hmm. The problem that I see, like, if you're looking at just the micro stats, like his playmaking did fall off in a pretty big way this year at 5v5. You can argue a lot of that is just to the lack of talent in Pittsburgh. But like, look at Pittsburgh. Do they look a lot better to you on paper heading into next year? Maybe they will after the offseason, but I don't know how many big-time free agents are lining up to go play for a team that looks to be headed to the basement rather than back to the playoffs. So yeah, I just don't know that it's a spot where you see a lot of positives for Carlson outside of what you expect him to bring to the table himself. You still see that he's a great rush player, obviously a great skater. We know this about him, but if the playmaking is starting to not be there, and maybe that could be some of the influence you're seeing in terms of the power play involvement as well, where he's just not as effective as he once was in terms of all of that. If that's true, then maybe this is, the new level of Erik Karlsson, where he is just kind of this 50 to 55 point run of the mill guy who doesn't hit, doesn't do a lot of that other stuff for you. He's going to shoot. He's going to be on the ice. I still feel reasonably confident about those two things, but his efficiency, I think, is really in question for me at this stage of his career. And unless, Pittsburgh manages to pull off something this offseason where they bring in some real heavy hitters to add to the top six, I just don't see how the overall offensive environment is enough to lift Carlson into the 60-plus point range again.
This is the team of distinguished gentlemen. All right, you know what? Shout out to the oldies. I'm rooting for Pittsburgh. Come on, boys. Help us out, all right? Hair for men only, all right? They all have dyed beards and, mustache combs. I don't know. What the hell am I even talking about, Nate? Sorry about this. Um, I'm looking at Daily Faceoff, the lines. They got Ville Koivunen on the top line there. I don't even know who that is. Do you know who that is?
Yeah, Ville Koivunen. Um, he could be in the top six role
Oh,
next year, the
damn.
way
All
things
right.
are shaping up.
Shout out
So
to Ville Koivunen. He's the opposite of a distinguished gentleman. And that's fine. You got your whole career ahead of you, my man. All right. Let's move on to our last player here. We got to talk about Roman Josi. Yeah. All right. The old consensus number 2 defenseman for fantasy that has fallen off a cliff. I got the gears from Nate in our way too early mock draft for picking Roman Josi as I think I picked him as the 3rd defenseman, maybe the 2nd. I don't even know. But yeah, Nate was giving me the gears. I still think that it last year was not a year that I want to judge Roman Josi on. Obviously, I think there was a lot of things, just extra things with Nashville that aren't even really explainable. Like it was just the worst case scenario for that team and those players. And then obviously Roman Josi got injured and he just decided to take the rest of the season off to rehab whatever injury he was dealing with, because why did they need him back? The team was terrible, right? But when you look at what Roman Josi brings to the table, first off, I mean, the production's insane, right? This guy's 1 season removed from 85 points in 82 games. He does that. Okay, 33 power play points. He's an amazing power play quarterback. Big time minutes, which he even increased this last year. Granted, it was only 53 games, but yeah, I think there's so many things I like about Roman Josi. This past season here, 24-25, 38 points in 53 games. That's a 59-point pace. That's fine, right? That's not second overall fantasy defenseman, though, right? Like we can't have a 59-point season from Roman Josi and feel good about that, but obviously, there was a lot that was going on there with the team. This guy, everything goes through Roman Josi, and I think they maybe got away from that a little bit because you get these big players in there that have gravity, right? Stamkos, even Marchand to some degree. Like these guys all have their own sort of play style, and also Roman Josi. I think they were playing him with, Pesci, Brady Shea, not Pesci. Brady Shea, and that wasn't a good pairing. Like they were not good together, right? So I think they're gonna have to figure something out there. But I just really trust the talent of this player. He's only 35. He's good to go, right? And I think that this is going to be a major bounce back season for him. And I don't think you're going to have to take him as the 2nd overall fantasy defenseman. I think you can get him 3rd round or 4th round potentially. Like, talk to me about Roman Josi, Nate, and what's your temperature here?
yeah, I think it's still a guy who's got some tread left on the tires for sure. The IPP shooting percentage, on ice shooting percentage, it's the lowest mark in the past 4 seasons in all 3 of those marks. So you expect some positive regression on that regard, unless, it is just a sign of actual old age and catching up with him. Microstats still show up really good. So that's in his favor. And yeah, just if you expect any kind of general team level bounce back for Nashville, then you have to expect that some portion of that comes through Roman Josi. The big question for me is he now just, in that kind of 3rd round tier of defensemen where you're talking about, Victor Hedman, like basically, is he worthy of drafting up there with Zach Werenski, with Quinn Hughes, with Rasmus Dahlin? Is he in that tier anymore? And I think that's a very valid question to have at this stage of the guy's career after what we just saw from Nashville. Like, who's to say that the year doesn't start out with just another faceplant and they bring in a new coach and the new coach wants them all to play defense and it just changes the entire look of the team? Like, there are still some bad scenarios here. Whereas I think, Stamkos, his role can get better. He can not be, shoehorned into a center role where he's not a great fit anymore. Roman Josi is just going to have to play defense potentially at some point instead of, lean into his strengths. That would be a potential question for Roman. I don't want to oversell that because I do think that the most likely scenario for Roman is a bounce back season. This past season it's only a 59-point pace. I do think he rebounds back into the 65 to 70-point range. So that I think is still the most likely scenario and probably where I will end up projecting him moving into next year. But I do think he is probably a little bit more higher variance than we're used to seeing after what we saw from Nashville this past year. You have to take that into account. You have to take into account that there are more potential worst case scenarios than we thought possible a year ago with this Nashville team. And I just have more questions with Josi than I do of any of the other top four defensemen that I mentioned before. The Makars, the Werenskis, the Hughes, the Dahlin. Honestly, probably Evan Bouchard I would include in that tier ahead of Roman Josi next year.
Oh my.
So yeah, it becomes, is he just, another guy in the range with Victor Hedman, maybe Jake Sanderson, if we're talking about a guy that we're excited about taking a step into another bigger fantasy production role next year. I think that it's valid to at least wonder if Roman Josi is moving back a tier level or even two next year, and where you want to value that. That being said, I think that the general fantasy hockey community is going to severely overvalue this drop off in production and end up undervaluing Josi in drafts. So I think he's probably going to go in, more casual leagues. I think he's going to drop down into like the 6th, 7th round in some of these leagues that you'll find out there. And at that price, absolutely, there's a ton of upside at that cost. But in sharper leagues, I still think there will be some question, and there will be a Josi bull in every league that'll probably get him drafted in the 3rd round.
It was me. Oh yeah. Folks, that's it for the distinguished gentleman list. Hit us up in the comments. What do you think? What do you think these players are going to do? All right. I feel good about this. But definitely hit us up in the Apples and Ginos Discord. We really like that. All right. We got 1,600 fantasy hockey managers getting to biz. Nate's in there. He's sending a lot of just personal pictures and stuff of himself. So if you want to get to know Nate a little bit better, that's the place to do it. Also, please, like, rate, review, subscribe, comment on the podcast. We really appreciate that. Also, check out the Apples and Ginos Patreon. We're doing stuff over there. All right. Nate's giving back massages. It's amazing. Okay. But that's all we've got for this episode, folks. Hopefully it brought you some value and helped you get just a little bit better at fantasy hockey today. All the advanced stats you heard from today came from Natural Stat Trick and All Three Zones, Corey Schneider's Microstats. So there you go. That's not a terrific free resource, but Natural Stat Trick is. Many thanks to the band. They're there for supplying the music for the podcast. Be sure to check out their Spotify as well. That's it, folks. Celebrate your day. Bye for now.